When do you need to pause and listen to your inner voice? 1. The noise that drowns the soul. When was the last time you truly listened to yourself? Not your phone, not your notifications, not the expectations or opinions of others, but you, the quiet, steady voice inside. Most of us go days, weeks, even months without doing so. We live in a world that celebrates movement, reaction, and production. We measure our worth by how fast we respond, how much we accomplish, how quickly we can keep up. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded. Emails, headlines, social media updates, messages that demand immediate attention. Our calendars are packed, our minds cluttered. Even our leisure time is filled with distraction, scrolling, watching, consuming. And in all that noise, the self gets lost. There's a still, steady part of you, a voice of reason, of intuition, of clarity. It doesn't shout, it waits, it whispers. And most of us have become strangers to it. We react more than we reflect. We follow more than we feel. We drift further away from our own values, not because we're weak, but because we're overwhelmed. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, ruled an empire, yet wrote often about his inner life. Despite the chaos outside, he sought moments of quiet, moments to think, to question, to remember what truly matters. Because even the mightiest lose themselves in the noise. It's not just external noise, it's the inner clutter too. The racing thoughts, the doubts, the expectations we've inherited from others. We've been conditioned to perform, to chase, to achieve. But in all our running, have we stopped to ask, where am I going? And is this truly my path? That's the danger of a noisy life. It keeps you moving, but not necessarily towards something meaningful. It gives you activity without direction, reaction without reflection. And when we lose touch with our inner voice, we feel it, even if we can't name it, that subtle ache of disconnection, the sense of drifting through days without purpose, the quiet anxiety that asks, is this it? Stillness feels uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because we're not used to it. Silence can feel unsettling, not because there's nothing there, but because we're not practiced at listening. Yet silence is where you begin to hear yourself again. Sometimes, the most important thing we can do is pause, not quit, not run, not numb ourselves with more doing, just pause. In that pause, something beautiful begins to happen. We notice our breath, we feel the weight we've been carrying, we start to see the thoughts running on repeat, not because they're true, but because they're loud. And we remember that beneath all the noise, we are still here. There is a quiet strength in slowing down. There is courage in asking, what do I need right now? There is wisdom in choosing to listen before reacting. The Stoics taught this not as a luxury, but as a necessity. Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. But you can't master what you never meet, and you can't meet yourself in constant noise. So what if today you took just 5 minutes to sit in silence, to turn inward, not for answers, but for honesty, to ask, what am I avoiding? What matters to me? What is mine to carry, and what have I picked up from others? It's not always comfortable, but it's always worth it. Because once you return to yourself, you begin to live differently. You act with intention, not impulse. You choose your path, not chase the crowd. You respond, not react. And in a noisy world, that kind of inner clarity is a rare and powerful thing. So again, let me ask you, when was the last time you truly listened to yourself? And if the answer is, I can't remember, maybe today is the day to begin again, quietly, gently, truthfully. 2, signs you're disconnected from your inner self. Have you ever ended a day feeling drained, even though you didn't do anything physically exhausting? That's not just tiredness, that's disconnection. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep won't fix because it doesn't come from the body. It comes from the soul, from living out of alignment with who you really are. One of the first signs that you've drifted away from your inner self is this chronic, invisible fatigue. You wake up tired, you go through the motions, you cross off tasks, and yet something feels missing. It's not that your life is falling apart on the outside, it's that it doesn't feel whole on the inside. Another sign, saying yes too often, even when everything inside you is screaming no. You say yes to obligations that drain you, yes to people who don't value your time, yes to staying busy just to avoid the silence. And over time, each yes chips away at your boundaries and your identity. You begin to lose touch with what you truly want because you've spent so much time chasing what others expect. And then comes the restlessness, Not the kind you feel after too much coffee. This one is deeper. It's that unsettled, anxious energy that follows you from task to task. You keep moving, but it doesn't feel like progress. You keep achieving, but it doesn't feel like purpose. You may even feel irritable, snappy, overwhelmed by small things. Not because life is suddenly harder, but because your soul is asking to be heard, and you're too busy to listen. One of the clearest red flags is this: you're living on autopilot. You don't remember why you're doing what you're doing. You go to work, you scroll, you check boxes, but the meaning is gone. You no longer feel present in your own life. And that's the danger. When you stop checking in with yourself, life starts moving without you. Your days blur together. Your dreams feel far away, and you start to wonder, is this really me or just a version of me I've created to survive? The Stoics would call this a loss of inner direction. Epictetus warned us not to hand over our minds to the noise of the world. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, be not distracted. Because distraction isn't just about phones or busy schedules, it's about forgetting to return to yourself. So what do you do when you notice these signs? You pause. You breathe. You start asking gentle, honest questions. Where am I saying yes when I need to say no? What have I been avoiding? What do I need that I haven't given myself lately? Am I acting out of habit or intention? And you don't need to change everything at once. You just need to notice. Because awareness is the first step toward alignment. When you recognize these signs, not with shame but with compassion, you begin the journey home. Back to clarity, back to truth, back to you. So the next time you feel exhausted for no reason, when the noise outside gets louder than the voice within, when you start to feel like a stranger to your own life, don't push through it. Don't numb it. Don't ignore it. Listen. That disconnection isn't failure. It's a signal, a quiet call to come back to yourself. And the beautiful thing is, you can always return, even if it's been days, months, or years. Your inner self is still there, waiting, patient, ready to guide you again the moment you're ready to hear. 3. The wisdom of pausing, a Stoic perspective. When was the last time you paused? Not because you had to, but because you chose to. Not to scroll, not to escape, but to sit with yourself, to listen, to notice. In a world that glorifies hustle, slowing down feels like rebellion. We've been conditioned to believe that if we're not producing, performing, or pushing forward, we're falling behind. But the Stoics would argue the opposite, that a life constantly in motion is not necessarily a life well lived. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But how can you even see your thoughts clearly when your days are a blur? How can you understand your own mind if you never stop to observe it? To pause is not to be idle. It is to realign, to step out of the noise and return to what truly matters. Epictetus taught that self-reflection is not a luxury. It's a necessity for those who seek mastery over their lives. The Stoics believed that the unexamined life is vulnerable, not because the world is cruel, but because the unaware mind is easily swayed by emotion, by impulse, by the opinions of others. Pausing gives you power. It gives you the space between stimulus and response. It creates room to choose, not just react. And in that space, you reclaim your freedom. Consider this. The difference between an average life and an intentional one isn't more time. It's more awareness in how you use your time. Seneca warned us, people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Every pause is a chance to notice where your attention is going and whether it's still aligned with your values. But pausing isn't easy because silence can be uncomfortable. Stillness brings up emotions we've buried under busyness. When we stop, we finally feel the exhaustion, the questions we've ignored, the grief we haven't processed, the misalignment we've been pretending not to see. And yet, that discomfort is where growth begins. To sit in quiet honesty with yourself is one of the most courageous things you can do. That's what Marcus did every night, reviewing his actions, his thoughts, his motivations. He didn't do it for perfection. He did it for clarity. He knew you cannot change what you don't confront, and you cannot confront what you won't slow down to see. So how do we bring this Stoic wisdom into modern life? Not with grand retreats or long escapes from reality, but with simple, intentional pauses. A few moments in the morning to ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? a deep breath before you respond to anger, a walk without your phone, a journal entry before bed. What did I learn about myself today? These are small practices, but they create profound shifts because they train your mind to return not to the chaos outside, but to the calm within. When the world shouts, "Go faster," you whisper, "Not yet." When life feels out of control, you pause and realize that you are the one holding the wheel. This is the Stoic art of alignment, of remembering that your peace does not depend on the pace of others, that your worth is not measured by productivity, that your inner world deserves just as much attention as your to-do list. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, scattered, reactive, don't push harder. Pause, not to escape your life, but to enter it more fully. Because every time you pause with intention, you sharpen your awareness, you clarify your values, you dye your soul with better thoughts, and from that stillness you rise stronger, not with speed, but with depth. 4. When the body knows before the mind does. Have you ever felt your chest tighten before your thoughts even formed the words, "I'm overwhelmed"? Or noticed a headache creeping in, not from noise or light, but from a conversation you didn't want to have? Or found yourself holding your breath only to realize you hadn't taken a full inhale all day? These are not random sensations. They are signals. And often they know more than your conscious mind is ready to admit. The body, in its quiet wisdom, often whispers what the mind tries to ignore. Before you think something is wrong, your body feels it. Before the mind understands you're off course, your breath has already gone shallow, your stomach tight. We tend to look at the body as something separate, something that reacts. But in reality, it responds, constantly, faithfully, and often first. This is where Stoic philosophy, often misunderstood as purely intellectual, surprises us with its depth of embodiment. The Stoics were deeply aware of the unity between mind and body. Epictetus reminds us self-awareness isn't just about thoughts, it's about perception. He taught his students not just to control their judgments, but to observe themselves, to become intimate with their inner world, including the physical sensations that often hold hidden truths. When we ignore the body, we ignore the early warning signs. Tension, fatigue, knots in the stomach, clenching in the jaw, they are the quiet alarms, not problems to fix, but messages to interpret. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most famous Stoic, knew this well. He suffered from chronic illness, yet never viewed the body as an enemy. He saw discomfort as a teacher, an opportunity to practice acceptance, endurance, and perspective. He wrote in his meditations, "You must build up your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal. No one can keep you from that." Even when the body falters, the mind can remain strong. But he never suggests ignoring the body, rather understanding its role in the full experience of being human. In today's world, it's easy to live in your head. We analyze, plan, worry. We try to think our way through every situation, but there are limits to cognition. Sometimes, what your body is telling you is more urgent than what your mind is rationalizing away. Think about the tension you feel after reading a stressful email, the way your heart races before a difficult conversation, or how your shoulders rise, almost as if shielding you from something. These moments are invitations to pause, to listen, to ask, what is this trying to tell me? The Stoics wouldn't tell you to suppress or escape these sensations. They'd tell you to meet them with curiosity and courage. Seneca, a philosopher who dealt with both political danger and deep personal loss, often spoke of somatic awareness, though not in modern terms. He advised tuning into discomfort, not as something to fear, but as a compass. Pain, fatigue, even illness, in the Stoic view, are not obstacles to the good life. They are part of it. They test your character. They reveal your inner dialogue. They remind you that control is not about avoiding pain, it's about choosing your response to it. So how can we apply this today? It begins with asking better questions, not just mentally, but physically. Where am I holding tension right now? When did I last breathe deeply? Really breathe. What emotion might this headache, this nausea, this fatigue be pointing to? These questions aren't soft. They're strong because it takes strength to slow down, to tune in, to allow the body to speak, and to really listen. You might be surprised what surfaces. Grief you haven't processed, stress you thought you were handling, a yes you said when your body screamed no. But don't fear that honesty. As the Stoics teach, clarity leads to virtue. The more you understand your own signals, the more wisely you can act. You won't be jerked around by unexamined tension or buried emotion. You'll begin to live in harmony with yourself. That's what Stoicism offers, not numbness, but awareness, not suppression, but sovereignty. And sovereignty begins with paying attention to the kingdom within, your breath, your heartbeat, your posture, your pain. So the next time something feels off, don't rush to fix it. Don't numb it. Don't flee. Pause. Feel. What might my body know that I haven't yet acknowledged? In that moment of honesty, you step into your power, not to control the body like a machine, but to partner with it, like the wise philosophers always did. 5. Practices to reconnect with the inner voice. There's a voice inside you that's quiet, but wise. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, it waits patiently beneath the noise of daily life, hoping you'll pause long enough to hear it. In the modern world, we're constantly pulled outward, by screens, by to-do lists, by opinions, by noise, and yet the answers we seek most, clarity, peace, truth, rarely come from outside. They come from stillness. Reconnecting with your inner voice is not about doing more. It's about returning, slowing, listening. The Stoics believe that true wisdom came from within. They practice stillness not as an escape, but as a way to align with reason, virtue, and self-mastery. Here are simple but powerful Stoic-inspired practices that can help you reconnect with your inner voice, even in the middle of a noisy world. Silent journaling. What truth am I avoiding? One of the most direct ways to hear your inner voice is by writing. Without filters, without edits. Set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes. Write by hand. Ask yourself, what truth am I avoiding? Let whatever wants to surface, surface. It could be an emotion you've pushed away, a decision you're delaying, a resentment you haven't faced, or a truth about yourself that feels uncomfortable, but necessary. Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, not for an audience, but for himself. Each page was an exercise in self-examination. He asked hard questions, challenged his own motives, and reminded himself of what truly mattered. You can do the same. Journaling is not about writing perfectly. It's about writing honestly. Some days, your inner voice may whisper. Other days, it may pour out like a storm. But either way, it's there, and it's yours. Daily breath check-ins. Your breath is one of the simplest ways to return to yourself. It's always with you, always in the present. Throughout the day, pause and ask, am I breathing deeply or shallow? What does my breath tell me about how I feel? Often when we're anxious, our breath becomes short and tight. When we're tense, we hold it. When we're overwhelmed, we forget to breathe altogether. A simple check-in, a slow inhale, a longer exhale can shift your state completely. The Stoics valued breath not as a spiritual practice, but as a tool for composure and clarity. When you reconnect with your breath, you reconnect with the present moment. And in the present, the inner voice is easiest to hear. Morning intention plus evening reflection. Bookending your day with a few minutes of intention and reflection can profoundly shape your sense of self. In the morning, ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? Where might I face challenges, and how do I want to respond? This isn't about controlling the day, it's about orienting yourself, choosing your compass before you walk into the storm. In the evening, reflect. Where did I live in alignment with my values? Where did I drift? What can I learn? Marcus Aurelius did this. So did Seneca. They knew that self-awareness doesn't just happen, it's cultivated. These simple bookends return you to yourself, so you don't drift too far from who you want to be. Time in nature, alone, without distraction. One of the quickest ways to hear your inner voice is to remove yourself from the noise of the world. No headphones, no podcasts, no scrolling, just you and the wind, the trees, the open sky. Walk slowly, notice things, feel your feet on the ground, let your mind wander without force or direction. Seneca often wrote about the peace found in nature. To the Stoics, nature was not just scenery, it was a mirror, a reminder of our place in the world and of what truly matters. Alone in nature, without distraction, something softens. The layers of pretense fall away, and what's left is you. You may not find all the answers, but you may find better questions. The power of small, repeated acts. These practices aren't grand. They're not meant to impress anyone, but done consistently, they rewire the way you experience yourself and the world. You'll begin to notice when you're drifting, hear the difference between your voice and the noise of others. Trust your own wisdom more and need external approval less. The Stoics didn't seek perfection, they sought practice. And with each act of reflection, breath, silence, and honesty, you practice returning to the self. So if you feel lost, if your thoughts feel loud, if you've been chasing things that leave you empty, try this. Sit down, breathe. Write, what truth am I avoiding? And listen, not with judgment, but with presence. That quiet voice within you has always been there. You just have to return to it. 6. Listening is strength, not weakness. In a world that rewards noise, speed, and constant motion, choosing to pause, to truly listen, is an act of rebellion. We are conditioned to believe that movement is progress, that being busy is being important, that talking louder means being right. But beneath that noise lives something deeper, something quieter, your inner voice. The part of you that knows, that sees clearly when the world becomes too fogged by opinions, expectations, and fear. And yet we often drown it out. Not because we don't care, but because listening feels too vulnerable, too uncertain, too slow. But what if listening isn't weakness? What if listening, especially to yourself, is the ultimate form of strength? The courage to be quiet. Stillness makes us uncomfortable. Silence feels like emptiness. We fill it with noise, music, scrolling, talking, working, rushing. Why? Because silence leaves space, and space allows truth to surface. Truth about how we're really doing, what we really want, what's no longer working. It takes courage to face that. As Seneca said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. Sometimes to simply sit with yourself without distractions, without performance, without needing to be anything but real is the most radical thing you can do. Listening builds self-trust. When you start listening inward, something powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself more. The voice within that says, this doesn't feel right, you stop ignoring it. The quiet nudge that says, rest, reflect, begin again, you start honoring it. You no longer need to ask 100 people for advice. You don't need to chase constant validation because you know how to return to yourself. The Stoics believed in this kind of autonomy. They didn't teach people to escape the world, but to master their response to it. And that mastery begins with listening. From noise to clarity. Most people aren't lacking direction. They're just buried beneath too much noise to hear it. When you slow down and listen to your breath, to your body, to your thoughts without judgment, you create clarity. What you've been holding on to that no longer serves you, where your energy is going, and whether it's aligned with your values, which desires are truly yours, and which were inherited from a world trying to sell you a dream. Clarity is not a lightning strike, it's a slow unfolding, and it begins when you stop long enough to hear yourself think. Listening is active, not passive. Let's be clear, listening isn't the same as waiting to speak. Listening is a skill, a discipline, a mindset. It requires patience, curiosity, humility. It asks, what is really being said here? Not just in words, but in tone, in silence, in the space between sentences. And that applies not only to others, but to yourself. Your emotions are trying to tell you something. So are your patterns, your resistance, your restlessness. Listening to them doesn't mean obeying them. It means learning from them. And learning is the beginning of transformation. The quiet power of self-awareness. When you listen inward consistently, something shifts. You become less reactive, more intentional, less swayed by trends, more grounded in truth. This is the kind of strength the Stoics cultivated. Calm in chaos, direction in uncertainty, integrity in a noisy world. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's real and unshakable because it comes from within. When the world is loud, go quiet. You don't have to keep up with the speed of everything around you. You don't have to rush to figure everything out. You can pause, you can breathe, you can listen. And in doing so, you may realize you're already wiser than you think. You already have the answers you've been seeking. You just haven't given yourself enough quiet to hear them. Listening as a way of life. What would your life look like if you made listening a daily habit? Not just listening to others, but to your body, your breath, your intuition. What decisions might change? What stress might soften? What clarity might emerge? Seneca wrote, most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. And that kind of power, quiet, steady, deep, begins with a single act, listening. So the next time the world demands your attention, give it to yourself instead. Not in guilt, not in escape, but in strength. Because listening, truly listening, isn't withdrawal. It's presence, it's courage, it's wisdom, and it just might be the most powerful thing you do today. 7, your soul is speaking. Are you listening? There's a voice inside you, not the one that repeats your to-do list, not the one that replays yesterday's mistakes, not even the one that whispers worries about tomorrow. This voice is softer, slower, wiser. It doesn't shout, it waits, and it wonders. Are you listening? We live in a world of answers, at least that's what it feels like. Every day we're told what to want, what to fix, what to chase, how to look, who to be. You could spend an entire life moving to someone else's rhythm, always reacting, always adjusting, yet never quite arriving. And yet, the most important questions you carry, they're not out there. They're in here, inside the quiet space you rarely visit. The wisdom you forgot you had. You were born with a compass, a deep knowing that tells you what feels right and what doesn't. But over time, that compass can get buried under noise, pressure, expectations. So you start searching. More books, more advice, more motivation, trying to find something to fill the gap inside. But what if there is no gap? What if all you need is space to remember? Return is not retreat. Taking time to pause is not weakness. It's not laziness. It's not giving up. It's a return to stillness, to breath, to yourself. Think of it this way. Muscles grow in rest, not in strain. Seeds sprout in silence, not in noise. And the soul grows when you stop trying to improve it and simply let it speak. When the noise fades, truth rises. What are you running from? Is it silence, or is it what silence might show you? Sometimes we avoid stillness because we're afraid of what we might feel, afraid of facing sadness, uncertainty, regret. But here's the truth. Those emotions are already there. They're just buried under distraction. And the moment you make room for them, without judgment, they begin to soften. They teach you something. They give you strength. This is where Stoicism meets soul. Not in the absence of feeling, but in the ability to face it with courage. A moment of pause is a moment of power. Close your eyes for just a moment. No phone, no music, no answers. Just this breath, just this you. Can you feel it? That's not emptiness. That's presence. That's where your clarity lives. That's where peace begins. Not in the future, not in figuring it all out, but here, now, in this quiet, honest, ordinary moment. The answers are already inside. It's a beautiful paradox. You go looking for something outside and end up finding it within. Wisdom isn't always new knowledge. Sometimes it's remembering what you once knew. The Stoics taught us to look inward, not because the world is unworthy, but because the soul is rich enough to carry us through it. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And Marcus Aurelius reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. But that strength doesn't scream, it doesn't demand. It waits in the silence for you to return. So, are you listening? Let this be your invitation. Take one moment today, even just 5 minutes. Sit, breathe, listen. Not for solutions, not for perfection, just for honesty. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What truth have I been avoiding? What does my soul need me to hear? And then stay long enough to listen. You may be surprised by what rises. Not loud, not urgent, but true and healing and yours. Because your soul is always speaking, even when you're busy, even when you're tired, even when you're lost, especially then. And the question isn't whether it's speaking. The question is, are you listening? Because maybe, just maybe, the answers you've been chasing are waiting patiently in the quiet for you to come home.